Hey, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Disgruntled. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty pumped for today's conversation. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I feel like today's discussion is going to get a little elevated. And I'm pretty excited about it. Not only because the discussion is going to get elevated, and I think that we have a great topic to talk about because it's effing nonsense. But we also have our buddy back. There's Jason. Hey, buddy.
I'm back, bitch.
Welcome home.
I'm so excited to be back.
Before we get started, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Please, can you please explain your banner on the wall? If you ask me for an explanation, I'm going to say that you are displaying homage to the best meal ready to eat ever manufactured for the United States military.
I am doing a public service announcement by being contrary to that statement you just made. Jambalaya is trash, and nobody's going to fight me on this because if you have even a moniker of a ability to understand the difference between good and evil, you would know that Jambo is nothing that needs to go in your mouth hole. And that's it. I hate jambalaya.
Put that on a T-shirt.
But see, I love real jambalaya. Louisiana.
That was real jambalaya. That
Yeah.
had shrimp in it, dude.
If there's anybody out there that actually believes that that's bona fide shrimp and not something out of like a krill factory where they're growing tilapia in Vietnam, those are not shrimp. You're lost.
Man. It's an ongoing battle here in this studio.
It's not a battle. The battle's been won.
Okay. All right. So nonetheless, we have our buddy back in the studio. It's been a long time. We've missed you. Let's get on to the conversation because I feel like we got a lot to talk about. So recently, there was some news put out about. I'll just read it here. The top guy, the top general of all the National Guard of the whole country, came out and said just the other day. What day was this? On the 18th. On the 18th of June, the year of our Lord, 2024,
Amen.
the general, and here, let's put him on the screen so you can see what we're talking about here. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong. There he is. This guy said, the southern border mission has no military value. So if you don't know, the National Guard has been deployed to help federal, state, and local law enforcement. I guess I don't know a good word, but disrupt the invasion at our southern border. This guy says that holds no value at all, and that we probably shouldn't even be there. Our soldiers shouldn't be there because it holds no training value. Jason. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. What say you?
I want to know where this Galaxy Quest officer came from. To say that there's no military training value when you have deployed assets to a arid, hot climate in our own country, protecting the border, which is the most secure thing that we should have as a country, outside of elections, but I digress. That there's no training value in that is to completely throw, I would say, roughly 75% of every individual who's deployed that's listening to us now. Everything that they've ever done in deployment apparently just doesn't matter or is of no value, because if that is of no value at our border, it's certainly of no value anywhere else. And number two, it mimics with almost precise inflection what a deployment is like when you are in the Middle East. I don't know where we're going to fight the next war, and of course we always train to the last war, so this is a perfect training exercise, one could argue. But you are in theory, backing up those that need to do the most important job that we have in this country, boots on ground, is to secure your borders from invaders. Now, you can call what's happening down there by any phraseology you want. I don't care. I'm done with that. We know what it is. That has to be something that is backed up. And if you can't, as a 4-star general, understand the training value that is being earned by those people, either you are not directing the mission in an appropriate way, or you with your 4 stars of power over there in D.C. are capitulating to the powers that be to a point where you render your own service members impotent to conduct the mission. I'm not saying that the military needs there to be active like the military is when we're in a Title X situation overseas. But they could sure as hell be doing a lot more than I assume what they're doing if he's not seeing any training value. But what do you do when you're on guard duty overseas?
Stay awake.
Stay awake, observe and report, watch this thing. I want to see if he says that there's no training value, then show us the mission.
That's a good point. What is the mission that was put down from higher? Right? So this guy is he's the boss of all the bosses of the National Guard. So who does he answer to? Does he answer to the House Armed Services Committee? He answers somebody at the Pentagon, I would imagine. What are they telling him? What's the mission? Right? And furthermore, I would argue that it's not supposed to have training value. This is not a training mission. This is a fucking invasion.
This is the mission.
This is the mission,
Doggerton. Like this is, you're not training for it. It's like you said before. It's like you're sitting down to take a shit, and you're going to train to take a shit before you take a shit. No, you're taking a shit.
Yeah.
Like this is the job. What training are you going to do? I don't know. When I deployed, we didn't do any extra training. It was kind of you did the job when you were there.
Yeah.
You're building the skill set.
It's almost like this general is sitting at a table going, "Are we talking about practice? We're talking about practice?
What's that? We're talking about the
Yeah,
playoffs."
it's like Allen Iverson. Like this is game day, right? Your soldiers are on the southern border because our local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies are underfunded, they're understaffed, they're undersupported, and they're getting their asses kicked.
Right. And that's what I would like to see too. Like, and we know this, and for those of you listening who served or have even a moniker of understanding on how things work in the government, there has to be an order put together for what they have to be doing. So these people aren't just showing up down there and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't know what rank means. I'm going to have you go burn this trash can and you're going to go do this." No, like they have, there's funding that's been set aside because if I'm not mistaken, they're deployed under Title X, are they not?
I believe so, but it seemed confusing because some way, somehow, they got to get paid from their states, but Texas is helping to pay the bill and
so,
blah, blah, blah.
So that's, yeah. So anyway, but it's not a Title 32 order, which would be directly paid by the state, but it's being funded through Title 10. So obviously, it's federal dollars that are doing
quality.
this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even matter if it's Title 32 dollars. The governor doesn't deploy you out without a plan. And that plan gets presented to the governor, and then the governor approves a plan, and then you execute it. So somebody down this line, if this is the big kahuna, and the big kahuna says that there's no training value in the actual mission, well, you just spoke the unspoken words. You don't need training value in the mission. You go do the job. You don't train to, I don't know, race a car in a car race, do you? You're just racing the car. Like they are literally out there doing the thing. And somebody had to write it, somebody had to direct it, somebody had to tell them exactly how they're going to fit in. And I'm sure that's a total piece of trash too, because it's obvious when we see what's going on that they're not given the left and right limits to be successful. And if their job is to just sit back and watch all this happen and just be there as a show of force, well, if your force doesn't do anything, you're not showing anybody anything. So maybe that's why their training value is trash, because they have a trash mission and they're not allowed to actually do anything. Maybe that's why we saw them get run over at that checkpoint a few weeks ago. in that video that we watched on the show.
Well, yeah. Well, and you're right. Like there is very specific guidelines put in place. There's very specific goals put in place for each unit that has boots on ground, right? Like you said, it's not just show up and hey, you go do this and you go. It's not a backyard pickup touch football game,
No.
right? And you take turns picking people, and so there was. And anybody who has served knows a little bit about backwards planning and how you plan a mission and how you brief a mission and how you put it out to the soldiers and how you prepare and then then you prepare to move out and then you move out and then you get to the objective and there's all these checkpoints and there's a lot of checks and balances along the lines of conception of a mission and completion. And the idea that this is any kind of training mission is very concerning to me. And it also is very weird. It's very weird to me that a general officer would see this type of thing as a training mission.
We're looking for training during a mission.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, who told him, hey, I need you to go in front of the House Armed Services Committee or the Defense Committee, the Senate Committee, well, whoever it is, and tell them that this has no training value. We got to get our soldiers out of here. Like, I find it very hard to believe that a man who has served in the military for as long as this guy has, and I don't know how long that is, but in order to be a 4-star, you've been in for a while.
Yeah, it was around 30, hovering just above or below when I read on him.
Okay.
Came out of California. I don't know if we should hold that against him or not. But
well, but even still, you have 2,500-ish soldiers. Your soldiers are deployed doing a mission, and now you're in D.C. talking about how you don't think that your soldiers are doing anything good there. They're not. There's no value for them to be there. If that was the case, why are they there in the first place? Does this guy not have the ability to say, now, hold on a second. This is not a good mission for our people. Like, we need to get maybe mutual aid. Maybe every police department in this country needs to send 2% of their force down to the border, and that's how we'll do this. Or a whole different way. Maybe we build the militia. Any United States citizen that wants to protect the borders of their country from an invasion, something.
yeah, well, how about just let sheriffs do the job that they can do? They could deputize everybody down there and put a bunch of people on. I mean, boom. And
So can the U.S. Marshals.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's a lot of triggers or levers that they could have used to get to the point that they are.
So how did we get this far? And now the guy,
Because we're led by dipshits. If we can't start to call the people that are making these decisions fools and morons, we're just done. Because this one line right here says it all. There is no military training value in what we do there. This is a law enforcement mission, which I digress, but they're doing mission sets that are not directly applicable to their military skill sets. That time, I think, would be better used building readiness to deter our adversaries. Now,
oh boy.
so there's all right. So there's everything that's said that's not being heard. If you want to sit there and say that your guard troops should be back home spending, I don't even know, because we know it's not 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year, building readiness to deter our adversaries. What greater adversary do we have right now than what's happening at the southern border? So number one, you've just contradicted everything in reality from the spoken word nonsense that we continue to be inundated by, because it doesn't matter who's talking out there. It's always the same. They will actually tell you the lie out in front, and it's up to us to see it with our own eyes. Quit listening to the words and start to actually read it, start to see it. They're doing mission sets that are not directly applicable to their military skill sets. Now, Richie, I ask you this. Did you do everything when you were on deployment within your specific MOS criteria?
No, but I did a lot of other people's MOS criteria.
Oh, that's right. Because when you actually deploy or mobilize a military, it doesn't work out like it does when you're playing Command and Conquer on your fucking computer. And you're going to have to bleep that one. But it is needs of the Army, right? It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're an engineer and we need some ground pounders. You're a ground pounder today. I don't care if you are a aviation mechanic. If the fob that you're on gets overrun, guess what? Go grab that M16. Go grab your M4. Sorry, I just aged myself with a 16. But you're going to go grab that M4 and you're going to go engage. You're no longer a mechanic. You're an infantryman. This is how the game works. So when you have a general officer that's saying, well, you define those skill sets and we're going to go do all this really hard work and we're going to, become better MPs by knowing how to check IDs before you come into Fort Hood. Shut the F up. That's nonsense. This is the actual job. This is what they should be doing. We should absolutely have our military there. We should have our military there backing up what the local authorities or the state or the federal or the county, because I'm following you all the way up chain on the ladder as you said it, backing them up with the numbers that they need to execute their actual job. Or maybe therein lies the real story, is that they can't execute the job, and so this is all for naught. And maybe this general in his from his ivory tower is just seeing that it's a waste of time.
But then why not say that?
Because you can't just tell the truth anymore. Everything has to, it's not okay to say no to somebody anymore, right? So you can never just sit there and say, wow, that's a bad idea.
Well, but all these things, you know how many times in my 19 years of service to this country, I was told to do some crazy, dumb bullshit. And I perceived it as crazy and dumb. And I tried to use hey, that's not my job. And it was, private, PFC, Specialist, Sergeant Leonard. If you remember right, your job is infantry and other duties as assigned to fulfill the needs of the Army. When you're in basic training, do you do any guard duty? Absolutely. Firewatch, CQ.
Right.
You stand in the foxhole and watch while your buddy gets an hour of sleep and then you switch. This is all stuff that you do. Everybody is taught to shoot, move, and communicate at a very basic level. This is the goddamn mission. And so it leads me to believe that there's treachery afoot. Right? Because now we're here. We're there. We got the soldiers are there. They're doing their job. And now all of a sudden there's a hearing. And old Grandpa General, whatever the hell his name is telling the Senate and Congress, this is not our job.
We're not getting enough training value out of this.
Training value here. You're goddamn right you're not getting any training value because you're supposed to be doing your job. You're not supposed to be getting training. And I really hope that we can find clips of this hearing if it's out there. Because I'd love to see it.
Well, but he also said that it's really hard on these troops to be away from their families. Well, maybe there's your training. Because guess what? That's what happens. The reserve component is used and utilized in this country like people don't understand. The regular Army, the Marines, all the active component had primarily been the fighting force 2 decades ago, 25, 30 years ago in the 90s. No longer is that the case. You look at where troop movements come from. You look at what percentage in the theaters of war that have been operated over the past 20 years. The vast majority of those folks are reservists.
Yes.
It's over 50%. And so the misconception that the reserve component is just there for flood duty or insert whatever state emergency that your state may have, that's not the case. And so as he's going on talking about these things that, now these people are going through hardships because they may as well be deployed to Kuwait, which already tells me you're a real hard charger because if Kuwait is your next level up, I mean, come on. More people got carpal tunnel and diabetes in Kuwait than anything else.
The peach tea was good.
I could guarantee it wasn't. A lot of dudes got swole and, bought a bunch of chessboards to send home. But I would honestly say probably some what is that? The old wrist Olympics and diabetes were probably the two major outcomes that were negative for
I got
soldiers
tendonitis in my elbow and wrist, something fierce. And I don't know why. Were you deployed? Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, where were you deployed to?
Yeah. Somewhere boring.
An imminent stroking zone. I was in Kuwait. But I mean, and this is how far off base this guy is that Montana's John Tester, our Richard Leonard's favorite senator of all time.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Is not on the same side. He's the one that's vocalizing that we're not doing enough there. We're not, you know what I mean? We're not handling business down at the border. For John Tester to be on that target, at the same time you have the Guard Bureau's highest ranking. And I don't know. I mean, I wanted to get back into that because you were talking about it, like how do we set this? And because he's the Guard Bureau chief, so he's got to be similar to like the chief of staff, or not chief of staff.
Yeah,
Army,
he answers to somebody in the cabinet, I'm sure.
But he's got so he's basically a cabinet general. So I don't think he actually has. I think he makes direct, specific.
He's more like
notations.
An advisor.
He has to be in one of those advisory roles where he's making that kick up to come back down. Or Guard Bureau is different, and I have no idea. But maybe Guard Bureau is different than the other components where they don't actually have somebody that kind of sits in that tribunal. Maybe they are the execution officer too. I don't know.
Well, maybe it would have been a good idea for us to do more research so that
the hell
we knew
with
this
research.
hierarchy. But at the same time, this argument that, it's really hard for these soldiers to be away from home is absolutely nonsense. As a reservist, when you go, let's just say for conversation's sake, that we're sticking to our 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. Well, that 1 weekend a month, these men and women who are in reserve components, they sacrifice a lot. Because what happens on the weekends? Well, your kids have sports, people get married, people celebrate birthdays, people do all kinds of things that involve family, friends, and otherwise. So they're making a sacrifice there. So they already know that it sucks to be away from home. And then 2 weeks a year, which, by the way, folks, 2 weeks a year is bullshit. It's usually about 2.5. Sometimes it's 3. And with the operation tempo, the way that it was at least a couple of years ago, you're doing 4 to 6 weeks away from home a year.
Oh, 100%.
And so don't try to tell me that deploying soldiers to the southern border is a strain on them because they're away from home. They already know that being away from home is part of the deal.
Yeah.
We know that when we sign up. That's not new to them. And so that's not a good argument. Let me ask you this. When you were deployed, Jason, to Iraq or anywhere else for that matter, if you were on your FOB, your base where you lived, and the local nationals and or the enemy start coming and sneaking over the berm, right, into your base, where you live and all of our weapons and our vehicles and this and that and blah, blah, blah is, what happens?
They get lit up.
They die. Okay? Why is our southern border not treated like a military installation? If you and I drive our trucks over to Fort Snelling in St. Paul or Minneapolis and start climbing over the fence of an Air Force base, what do you think is going to happen to us?
Let's just go a quick 300 miles from here, and let's go hit the Canadian border, and let's fail to hit our brakes as we roll through. Because I can guarantee you that the headache that our families are going to have getting our bodies back is going to be Herculean.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's going to the friendly north, folks. Like we have the one place where it's completely busted. So you don't even have to treat it like a military installation. Just treat it like any other tributary boundary. You know, the same boundary that's so important. We can't let the Russians do what they're doing to the Ukrainians. So we're going to fund billions of dollars there to protect their sovereignty, but piss on ours.
But we'll make excuses for ours.
Well, we don't get enough training. Maybe they get a lot of training in the Ukraine, and that's why it's worth spending all that money. Because it looks like they've got some pretty stellar recruits rocking over there.
Well, I think the problem is that the powers that be don't see, some of the powers that be don't see it as a problem. They don't see it as an invasion. They don't see it as an infiltration. They don't see it as a problem. But I'll tell you what, just Tuesday morning when I was reading, I did the mistake of reading news headlines. They outlined that since the first of the year, there has been, it was something like 52 men arrested that were illegal immigrants. I'm going to call them aliens, illegal aliens that were previously arrested in the United States that have all committed sexual crimes against minor children, and all of them had committed sexual crimes against minor children under the ages of 10. And they all were just arrested since the first of the year. And they've already been arrested for these crimes before this year. And they're here again.
Yeah, and if they got 52, how many are actually here?
Right.
You know, and to say that something like this could be done with blinders on, maybe this is, you know, going back to The Simpsons. There he is.
They've been right about a lot of
It's all
stuff.
according to plan.
Yeah.
Like this has to be by design. By default, the fact that you can see so many things fail around means that somebody has designed the failure.
So what would happen, do you suppose? What do you think would happen if 50,000 men and women showed up one day at the southern border and went to these soldiers and were like, hey, we got this, man. Go take a nap. And went up to the cops and were like, hey, we got it. And just started dropping these son of a bitches. Seriously. At what point is enough going to be enough? When is our children being in danger? When is our elderly being in danger? When is my wife being in danger? When is my parents being in danger? When is it going to be enough? And when is somebody going to give a shit enough to protect us and protect the people and things that we hold most dear? Now you have military leaders saying, well, we shouldn't even have our soldiers there. There's no value. Well, are you telling me that my family and my friends and the things that I fought for, this country that I believe is valuable, that I hold dear, there's no value in it? Well, you can shove that narrative right up your ass.
Right.
And so then what's going to happen? What would happen if 50,000 of us showed up with rifles and just started dropping these son of a bitches? Do you think that the next wave of people coming to the border and seeing all these dead bodies rotting in the sun with maggots crawling out of their mouths, you think they're going to try to come across? Probably
not.
Huh?
You know, probably not.
Yeah, they're going to go 10 miles down the river and try to cross.
And you wouldn't even have to do anything if you posted signs that says use of deadly force authorized beyond this point in every language. For Christ's sake, if we can take the time to, you know, write the rules to how to use every bathroom in Minneapolis, St. Paul in every language that's ever been written, and have a translator for how to fill up your garbage can.
Yeah.
I certainly believe we've got the resources to just put the signage up along the southern border, and maybe Congress could actually use some threatening verbiage against an invasion force, which it is, and to stop them. I mean, do you really need to go do all that? Or you don't need to go all in to be all in. You just need to show people that you are willing to go all in. And that's the wonderful Trumpism right there. Is you got to out crazy the hut. And nobody's better at a good offense is better than a great defense than Donald Trump. And that's why numbers dwindled. That's why everything dwindled, because there were consequences to those actions. And now every time you do, and for me, it's not the news, it's through iFunny, which you all know. Every time I see a meme that continually perpetuates, that if you get here, so-and-so is going to do this for you, and so-and-so is going to do that for you, and you're going to be given or afforded protections that, some Americans, many of those who need them, aren't even getting themselves.
Right.
There's no deterrence. If you're listening here in America and we have been afforded the most wonderful opportunity is to be born under the red, white, and blue, period. I've been to a few places. I haven't been to all of them because, once you have filet, who wants a burger?
Right.
I love America. For all of its faults, its warts, and its problems, America is the single greatest lottery ticket that one can win in this lifetime. No question about it. Now, we've lost our way.
Absolutely.
To quote Aaron Lewis, am I the only one? No, you're not the only one. And if you're listening to this podcast, my firm belief is that you're interested in the things that we're talking about. You understand that it's a worthy cause. The red, white, and blue isn't trash. It's not racist. It's not sexist. It's not any of those things. It's actually a wonderful place with opportunity afforded to everyone that is an American. But it's not afforded to everyone on the face of the globe. And I'm sorry, that just sucks. You're playing a smaller hand. You're playing 5 cards, Americans get 9. It sucks.
We're playing chess and you're playing checkers.
That's just it. We've got different moves, but we can't afford to give that to everybody on the face of the earth. And of course we want people to become Americans. And when they come here, when they assimilate, 40 years ago, we never saw the issues that we see now. Right. We protected the border. We brought folks to America that wanted to be Americans. How is it that everybody that comes here wants to bring Honduras with them? If that place sucked so bad, and to quote Trump, was such a shithole, why do you want to bring the shithole with?
Right.
Like, I don't go to my bougie friend's house and ask to eat the bologna on hand sandwich that I eat at home.
And now they're talking about giving asylum to all the spouses and kids of these people that are here illegally.
Well,
tell your families to come.
Bring them all. If you
another
got
4 million people.
4 million, it's all bullshit because all their data is skewed. I mean, it takes 5 seconds for anybody that's got any type of critical thinking to see their encounters versus blah, 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 and how they do their fuzzy math. Shit, that's just like the accounting at the government, at whatever, CBO, right? It's never right. This bridge will only cost $1.6 billion, and then in SpongeBob land, $10 billion later, they've got a quarter mile of this trash box built and it's covered in feces and condoms that have been used, and we only need another $42 billion to get the next half mile done. And it's still connecting nothing, but I digress. That's the nonsense we're up against each and every day. And when you have 4-star general officers, these should be the men and women that are leaps and bounds above us in intellect and ability to understand what the real need for a military is. It's not for activism. It's not for any of these other pieces. He used the phrase here, we need to build a force that is lethal, resilient, survivable, agile, and responsive. Well, what in your training in the National Guard or the Reserve component makes you any of those things more than protecting the sovereignty of our country?
That's a good question.
Nothing.
Maybe it's maybe there's some simulator somewhere that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, why don't we go fire off, 1,600 rounds and then really learn how to clean your weapon again? There's your readiness, you jackweed. And then he follows that on with, if we fail to modernize our equipment or our force design adequately, we increase the risk of sending America's sons and daughters into large-scale combat operations with equipment and formations that may not be fully interoperable with the active duty forces we serve alongside. What are you even talking about?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does 2,500 troops at the border have to do with the fact that you haven't upgraded the MRAP or whatever vehicle or whatever platform it is? Because, we need the new Spacely Space Rocket gun, because that M4 just wasn't quite serviceable enough.
Listen,
or
man,
the pistol.
the equipment doesn't need to be equivalent to the active duty. Do you have guns that shoot straight? Do you have ammo? Do you have vehicles with armor on them? Were they built in 2004 or were they built in 2024? It doesn't matter. What we need to do is have soldiers that are well enough equipped to fight the fight. We don't give a shit about brand new shiny equipment. Does it work? And this is coming from a guy that loves brand new shiny equipment.
Can't confirm. He do.
If you could see this setup here, you'd know exactly what we're talking about. But we don't care about that shit. We are interested in securing our border, protecting our families, and protecting everybody that lives here, and also protecting the immigrants that are here legally.
Americans.
And Jason's right. We can't afford, if I have a pie and I say, hey, does everybody want some of this pie? Well, there ain't enough to feed everybody on the planet, but I could give a bunch to people that are from my home, right? I'm not going to just let these people walk in my home and start shitting on my floor and sleeping in my bed. And I sleep on the couch in the basement. If somebody breaks in my house, you're going to hear a shotgun rack. And if that ain't enough, the dragon's breath is coming at you. I don't have dragon's breath, but I wish I did.
Noted.
But who gives a shit? What is this guy even? Let me put him on the screen because this guy is. Look at this puny son of a bitch. I'm so upset. I can't even get my words together.
My favorite part. So he's a 4-star general, and apparently, I mean, he deployed.
He's a 4-star general. He's got 2 rows of awards. What the hell have you been doing? You're air assault and airborne. So you jumped out of a helicopter and an airplane, and you have a CAB, a combat action badge, which you probably got because you were sitting in some office having a goddamn scotch when the fucking place got mortared. And then you ran to the basement and had some specialists go outside and check to see if it was done because he can die, but you shouldn't. God dang, man. So, got a lot of editing to do.
Right? And he's talking about, he wants to have this integrated force with all the, the latest and greatest.
Yeah,
things.
Bullshit.
Dude, when I deployed,
what did you have when you deployed?
I was just going to tell you this. So when I first deployed, we had flak vests.
From Vietnam?
Vietnam and, Cold War era stuff. So for those that don't, flak vest will protect you from, like, if somebody throws a pop can at you.
Maybe a 9mm.
No, yeah, it doesn't. No, it's no. The 9mm will fully penetrate that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
With soft side Humvees, we didn't even have pintle mounts for our crew serve weapons. We had bungee cords and a chunk of wood that we found in Kuwait. Now, did the invasion not go fairly well?
Well, if I remember right, we rolled right through.
It was a pretty well orchestrated machine. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't because of our bungee cord pintle systems, but it wasn't because we had those that anything bad ever happened. Like, the fighting force and the fight is what is needed, not all the fancy trash. That's like that carpenter that shows up with all the cool DeWalt stuff, but he can't cut a straight line. That's you go to a barber that's got the best equipment. And you just know, I mean, you walk in there and it's I'm going to use the phrase, it's some bougie shit.
And then you leave that barber looking like you.
Yeah, well, that's just it, right?
Yeah.
This is the last high and tight I got, and it feels more crap than high nor tight. I mean, that's why I can't pay for a haircut anymore. But no one cares if you fail to modernize equipment and force design. That's nonsense. You don't need. I mean, those are all very important things, but that is not the pinnacle. The pinnacle is the people. The pinnacle is the mission. It is not training. It is not anything else. It is folks who have signed up to make the sacrifice. I assure you, if you ask those Guard or reservists that are down there on the southern border what they feel about the mission that they're doing there, they're probably going to say, we can't do enough. And for that reason, they feel like their time is wasted.
Yes.
And so therein lies the challenge to these general officers, to the politicians, to those who are listening right now, is to reach out and make that phone call, write that letter. If you're going to take the time that these Guard and reservists are going to have to give this country under these orders to go do it, give them a damn job that they can do. Let them do what they need to do on that border. And I'm not saying cut them down. I do love that idea, though.
What's that?
Well, cut them all down. Just start laying bodies.
Well, it won't be all of them. It'll be enough to prove a point.
It'd be enough for cordwood. It's like the beachhead.
Yep.
Right? No, you know what? That whatever's going on over there, I don't want to be part of that. Okay, that's one thing. But just allow them to actually go do their thing. And I'm not saying that means light everybody up. What I'm saying is whatever the rules are, whatever struggles that those folks are having at that border, if it's capturing, if it's observations, if it's cataloging, whatever those pieces are, cut these guys and gals loose. Because if it were me and I were in that position, there would be nothing worse than being there, not being able to do anything, or being impotent in my abilities because I can't cross these particular lines. And we all know it can happen. It's so simple.
Well, I'll tell you this. I love you. You're my brother. But on this, we don't agree. I say, I'll agree with you on one point. Their time is being wasted because of the rules of engagement. Their time is being wasted because they're told to get in this Humvee, go here, use your binoculars and your thermal sights and find these people and then let us know where they're at. Observe and report. That is a waste of time. I would reckon that there are many soldiers out of the 2,500 that are down at the border that are on observation points that are watching people cross the border.
Right.
And they can't do anything other than call it in. Where I disagree with you, Jason, is kill them all. Let them have it. Because here's why. There is no way for us to be able to tell who are the terrorists that are coming through. Because if you look at the pictures, the only thing that's really good about the news cycle these days is that they're there. And they have cameras and video cameras. And they're not just Latino folks. There was a line of about 100 people that were all Asian dudes. And none of them were older than 35 and none of them younger than 25.
Right.
And some of these dudes, a lot of them were wearing sleeveless shirts and no shirt at all. And these dudes were yoked. Right? So, like, they're not starving.
Well, that's right. That's the whole thing. Like, let these guys loose. Go let them go tag these guys. Let's get them in cuffs.
With bullets.
I get you there.
But because we don't know. And so if we go, okay, well, let's capture them all. And then let's provide them due process. And then they tell some good-ass story or whatever, let's deport them. And then they go and they find a hole and they come back anyway. And then they perform. To me, it's risky. I think if we start stacking them like sheep, it'll stop.
Well, I don't, and you
it's
have
barbaric. I understand.
You and I don't disagree because I think that's a wonderful way of getting the job done. There is no question about that. But I'm just saying, we know that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
They're not going to do it, right? So I'm not going to sit there and it's like wanting to win the lottery,
but somebody
never
has
buying
to
a
say
ticket.
it, dude.
Well, and there are people that are, they're saying it in different ways, but I would challenge you this.
That's the problem.
Let's go from 2,500 to 25,000 troops at the border and let them stop all traffic. Well, now it's not a waste of time. Now you literally can pepper that border and no, you cannot cross. Okay. There are ports of entry that you can go to and you direct them towards a funnel. And let me tell you this. Have you ever had to sit in line to take a leak somewhere?
Absolutely.
Right? We all have.
That's when you just go in the sink.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're going to go elsewhere. You're going to go to the path of least resistance. If you start getting people to come here and they are actually going to the ports of entry, because all the hypocrisy in Washington, D.C., we hear about, all these people need asylum. They can't all be. For Christ's sake, we are all in pretty shitty circumstances right now based upon our economic status and current debt. In fact, we would probably be people that would be allowed into our own country under the old bylaws of asylum and necessity.
Yeah.
The asylum days are over. Like, if you are not, I mean, I don't know what war is going on where we have all these people that need to go everywhere, because I'm pretty sure the Ukrainians are peppered all around Europe, right? And that's why they don't have anybody. And that's why you're seeing all these memes and these photographs of these Ukrainians that clearly were not the first wave of military members, because there's nobody left. That's one place where it's happening. Well, it's not happening everywhere else. So these people from Asia, they're not leaving war-torn countries. These people from South America, there's no war going on down there. They just have a shitty economic climate. We're all living through a shitty economic climate. So how can you have asylum when we have a terrible situation that you're going to inundate with more volume, with more people over the finite resources that we have? Like, you've literally taken asylum and tripled down on it to make it every American's problem.
Yes. And so what is the end game? Like, what is the number of asylum seekers or illegal immigrants or immigrants or whatever the hell you want to call it? What is the number at which we stop? Like, we
4.
can't support anymore.
4.
Well, I think the number is 0.
I give them 4. There's got to be 4 great stories out there.
Well, okay.
And
so
we all
there's 4.
vote on it.
But my point is this. When we have homeless veterans and homeless children, and we have all kinds of we have police officers getting ambushed and slaughtered in the streets, and then people celebrating this. There's just the whole country is so goddamn polarized, and there's so much hatred, but yet we're bringing in more polarization. My vote is close it completely, 0, until we get our shit figured out. Like I say all the time, we have the nastiest backyard in the world. Well, maybe not in the world. And there's some pretty nasty backyards.
I was gonna say that's bold.
But ours is
Ours
pretty
isn't
nasty.
clean.
It's pretty nasty.
Yeah, ours isn't clean.
So until ours is manageable or cleaned up, we let nobody here. We have Americans that need the resources that we're giving people that have never stepped foot on American soil until a month ago. And they're just handed resources that Americans need and are begging for, and they're just left in the cold. So my vote is, I'm going to cut you in half. I'll take 2. Jason says 4, I take 2.
It's certainly single digits.
yeah.
But no,
5 or less.
And that's just it. And, we end up back into this thing. And if you haven't noticed, everything that goes on, like, we're always looking for, who's doing this or why is this being caused? I think the one conversation that we have to pick up at some point in time here is this battle between good and evil.
Absolutely.
Because everything that we see, all this divisiveness, all this nonsense, the fact that you have a 4-star general that comes out and says there's no training, is all being directed by evil.
Absolutely.
They're serving. He's not doing any of his soldiers under his command any good by saying these things. He's not doing himself any good. He's not doing Americans any good. And so there has to be an angle, and the angle is always evil.
Right. And until, hopefully, if Donald Trump becomes president again, hopefully some of this stuff will right itself. But then the concern for me becomes, because maybe you can call me a doomsdayer, the concern for me is, well, that guy's only got 4 years. And then what? Then where do we go? But that's a long ways away. But anyway.
Still got to get to day 1.
Yeah, exactly. We still got to get through the rest of Sleepy Joe sucking on child's hairs and ice cream. We have went way over our time. We don't even have time for closing thoughts after the hair sniff. Do you have anything that you want to add, Jason, other than a sniff?
No, just a sniff.
Okay. I think that, at the risk of being extremely controversial, whatever. But somebody has to. And it just keeps getting worse, and it just keeps getting, the problem keeps getting bigger, and the country is bulging at the seams, and it can't do that. We can't do this forever. This can't go on forever. There has to be a breaking point. There has to be a threshold where we as a country say no more. And who has the power to do that? I don't know. It's certainly not me, and it's certainly not Jason, or it probably would be in motion already, because bullets are only like 13 cents a piece.
Where are you buying bullets?
Well, I don't. Well, what? Okay, well, 37 cents a piece, maybe.
There we go.
But nonetheless, all the billions of dollars that are pushed out to the rest of the world when we're hurting, we're struggling as a country. We're struggling to keep our camaraderie. We're struggling to stay together. We're struggling to ensure that our children are educated properly. We're struggling to make sure that our aging parents are somewhere safe, and that somebody, if it can't be us, are taking care of them proper. I mean, there's just so many things that are going downhill because of the bigger picture. And I don't know that it's just the immigration problem. There's a lot of problems, but this doesn't help, especially for those of you that live on the southern border or the southern states. But anyway, we have run out of time. Thank you for joining us. I didn't say that in the beginning. I was so excited to have the Slick Top Wonder back. But if you do like our content, please consider a like and subscribe. It really helps us to help grow this channel. As I've said before, we have a lot of things that we'd like to do with this platform that we've been given. And so your likes and subscribes and viewing the show, it goes a long way for us. So we really appreciate that. Yes, thank you very much. And we hope that you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Good night.